Hey, folks, this is Wes Colton with the Introvert Unbound podcast. In this episode, really excited to welcome Zach Bourne. He is not just a dating coach, he is a personal development coach who specializes in dating. He's also an introvert. So, what topic are we going to talk about? I think we're going to talk a little bit about dating as an introvert, and then we'll see where the conversation goes. So, welcome, Zach.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
So, tell us where you are in the country.
So I'm in New York City. I live here in New York City. I've been here for about 9 years. But yeah, it's been my home for 13 total, but where I am in New York for 9.
Excellent.
It,
Yeah, I actually originally come from New York, the Hudson River Valley, so just about an hour
oh,
north of
awesome.
the city. So I'm definitely familiar with it. So yeah, dating in New York City. Wow, that's both. There's a lot going on there with that, isn't there?
Yeah, it can be definitely be interesting in New York City. And a lot of times in New York City, you can get a lot of dates, maybe in a short period of time, but maybe people feel there's more competition or whatever.
Right.
Um, Yeah, and actually, a friend of mine, she went on 100 dates and actually still did not find anyone. But I think, and I'm sure this is something that you probably see a lot too, is even if you find the right person, that if you're not ready, then it's not very meaningful.
Right.
And so, like that friend of mine, she went on 100 dates, but she wasn't ready.
Right.
She wanted it a lot, but she had not developed herself enough to get to the point where she could be ready for having that person.
That's a really great point. If you're not in the right headspace or not at the right level of emotional development or what have you, just
Yeah.
meeting a bunch of people, that might not work for you.
No, totally not. And also I feel like it can make dating much more stressful. What do you think? I feel like it's not quite as fun if, when you're more ready, you can just have a good time no matter what happens on the date, sort of. You can go in with that mindset, which I really
Right.
like.
Well, I guess the
Yeah.
question is, what does it mean to be ready? Like, what does that look like?
Right. Well, that's an individual thing, and that's definitely something very important that we have to kind of look at in ourselves. And I find a lot of people who don't have, what they want in their life, they haven't really become ready. And sorry. And there's so many ways that we can become ready. Do we have time in our life? Have we let go of old baggage? Do we even have like physical space? Would you be embarrassed if that person came to your house tomorrow?
Right.
There's so many things, and also, a lot of people too still haven't come to a positive place about relationships. They're not expecting it to go well, and then a lot of times find themselves sabotaging relationships or not being able to be fully present because they're insecure. Actually, I think insecurity probably it's one of the things that probably ends maybe the most relationships. It
Yeah.
probably has in my own life.
Yep.
Um, and especially for us introverts, it's very easy to become insecure because a lot of times the world around us, I feel like, doesn't value our introspection.
Mhm.
Have you seen that be the case?
Oh, no question.
Yeah. And so yeah, I think it's important for especially us as introverts to increase our self-confidence, increase our inner value. I think inner value is like out of everyone I've coached, that's the one thing I always have to coach up,
Mm,
inner value.
right.
And actually, I've been toying with this theory lately. What do you think the quality that people most look for? And this is just discussion, and maybe
Hmm.
you can help me hash out this idea more.
Hmm.
What do you think the quality that people most look for in general? Because you hear people
Hmm.
say they look for confidence or they look for humor, they find those things attractive. What do you think?
Well, are we talking about what women are looking for in men, or vice versa, or all
Well,
both?
it's open, it's very
Yeah.
general.
I,
Mhm.
I I think sometimes some men can prioritize certain things that women don't prioritize and vice versa.
That's
But
true.
I would say, to be very vague, would be just simply connection. And I
Yeah.
think that's a really hard thing to kind of write down on paper what that looks like, but it's sort of like the kind of thing, you know it when you see it.
Yeah, and you feel it, that chemistry, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think chemistry is a part of it too. I mean,
Mhm.
to be crass, I do think sexual chemistry and attraction is primary, but that can look like different things. It doesn't necessarily look like the stereotypical things that we're always told all the time. So
That's true.
I do
Mhm.
know that's got to be a component, but I do know also for a fact that just sexual chemistry alone, that does not have legs.
No, it doesn't. No, that's true. It
So
does
what do you
not.
think? What do you think is the thing that you're finding that's at the top of people's list?
I've been toying with this idea. I think connection is definitely a really great one. I've been toying with this idea. I guess this is a little bit separate.
Hmm.
Um, it is maybe I could phrase it a little bit different, more like what people find across the board most attractive. And I think it's actually similar for men and women,
Okay.
and it's relating to what you were talking about too. But I think like self-worth
Mm.
is like really the thing that people really find attractive, self-worth. Because and there's different kinds of self-worth, right? Self-worth can come from physical attractiveness, it can
Hmm.
come from intelligence, it can come from anything, and people will value different things differently.
Yes.
And I think that's what people gives people different tastes. But in general, I don't know if I've ever seen someone really attracted to someone who has no self-value. And
Yeah.
people who have very high self-value, I find across the board, people are attracted to them.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent point. And that's the case with, both women and men. Of course, you don't want to
Yeah.
see anyone who just doesn't think much of themselves. And, people are attracted to different things for short periods of time. So it can still be, oh, well, that girl's cute. I'm going to go on a date with her. And it's like, but she doesn't value herself. She doesn't respect herself. That's probably not something you're going to be into that long. I mean, maybe you're in a similar boat and you just kind of
Mhm.
tolerate that fact. But yeah, I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah. And, yeah. But the cool thing about this, I think, and kind of exciting about this, and can make dating a lot easier for people, is that self-worth is something that anyone can increase.
Yeah.
It's something that anyone can increase and anyone can improve in themselves, and it'll help you with other areas of your life too. So I think that's exciting, and it makes it easier because sometimes dating seems so complicated, don't you think?
Yeah, yeah, it seems like it, and I think some aspects we make more complicated than they need to be. That's for sure.
Totally, totally, right, exactly, yeah.
But so speaking of developing self-confidence, would you say
Mhm.
that you were an individual that at a point in time in your life, maybe tied into your introversion, that you felt less confident and then you kind of worked on yourself? I mean, now you're a dating coach, so
Mhm.
I'm
Oh
definitely going to
yeah.
assume you're pretty confident.
It wasn't even close. Oh, it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
I was really bad, and I remember even like when I was a kid, I'd sometimes tell this story, and there was like a girl that I liked, and I would go like say hi to them, and then they would say hi back, and then I would just like keep walking.
Yeah. What do you do? You're just like, well, that's it.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Yep.
It's as far as I got, you know.
Yeah.
Probably, girls are like, who's this weird guy, doing this, not able to really hold a conversation.
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, because I didn't grow up with a ton of value at all. I grew up very depressed. I didn't have a lot of, I didn't have like a lot of people telling me in my life that I'm worth something, or at least that's how I felt at the time. And yeah, I really got into personal development 13 years ago. It really changed my life, and it's helped me a lot socially. I had to learn social things. I had to
Yes.
like sit down and actually like learn them.
Hmm.
I wasn't that skilled naturally. So yeah, and that made a huge difference in my life, and increasing the value has, yeah, it's made a massive difference. Biggest difference out of anything I've done.
That's excellent. Yeah, I do find that a lot of folks who are, say, dating coaches or, personal development coaches, whatever you want to call it, it's like we've been through a lot of stuff because we pulled ourselves up from a lot lower level, and that gave us the ability to not only understand that it's possible, but kind of break it apart to teach others. I do find like the best
Totally.
dating coaches, let's just say particular, are not necessarily guys who have always been great at dating because they don't really know what they're doing. Like it's just a
Right.
natural thing, and they've never had to be in the situation where, okay, how do I improve this? You know, not that they can't improve, and of course they have. It's not like they were born out of the womb good at dating, but early on in life, their social skills or their situation was such that it was easy to them. But if you're like, all
Yeah.
right, this is not working for me, I need to do things that doesn't work, that doesn't work, this works. That's how you learn, and that's how you become a great teacher.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You said it very well. Like, I can't even say it better.
Well, because I had a similar situation as you, and that's kind of where I got to today. Is like, all right, I need to work on this stuff, and I think the fact that we've been there, we can have empathy for
Yeah,
let's
totally.
guys who are in that headspace. You know, rather than certain guys like, yeah, huh, that's weird to not be getting laid. What is that? You know, it's like we know that. We know. So, do you work primarily with men?
Actually, I probably primarily work with women.
Oh,
Interestingly enough, I'm mostly vast majority women probably, but I think it's just
interesting.
because personal development is like 75% women, and
Really?
a lot of women are looking for this. I think guys sometimes are often shy
Yeah.
too to
Yeah.
like ask another guy for advice,
Oh,
and
yeah.
especially even more to pay for it, you
There's some
know?
stigma to that, yeah, and trying to break
Yeah.
that down. So I wasn't aware of statistics that you said around personal development because that's really interesting. Most of the folks I end up interacting with, and perhaps it's because of my approach and my perspective, are typically men. Certainly in the dating aspect, because I find
Mhm.
that being an introvert in dating, it's a bigger obstacle for men than women. So do you work with women on dating stuff? Is what you're saying too?
Yeah, I mostly work with women on dating
Okay, well,
stuff,
you need to
actually.
talk about this. So that's to me is okay because we talk a lot about dating on
hmm
the Introvert Unbound podcast on our website, and
hmm
some of it goes across the board, but the vast majority does apply to men. Some of our other stuff definitely is men and women or whoever, whatever your gender. But
Yeah.
the women stuff, okay. So let's talk
Well,
about
well,
that.
yeah, but I help out, I do both. And most of
Sure.
the coaching I do really applies to both because I think of it, yeah, especially with the self-worth thing, I think that's what women are looking for. I think that's what men are looking for. I think we're all kind of, looking for the same things. And,
Okay.
yeah, and the personal development aspect, I think really helps both. For men specifically, I think, men, we tend to grow up not valuing, have any like sexual value. Men typically
Mm-hmm.
think of themselves as not having any sexual value,
Right.
and kind of grow up with that mindset. And that's something that guys really have to change. And women have their own things that they grow up without having valued.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important for both. And yeah, I'm here to support, both genders, of course,
Yeah.
and everything in between.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what would you say the number one obstacle for women dating is, and for men dating, if they're the same thing or different?
Well, our biggest obstacle, I mean, of course, I think it's for both. I think it's the mindset,
Hmm.
and I think it's the personal development is the biggest obstacle. We really, um, sometimes with women, they're looking more for a specific type of relationship. Sometimes men are looking for a specific type of relationship. But it's interesting because I feel like sometimes, both sides aren't getting exactly what they want.
Hmm.
And I think the biggest hurdle is coming to an understanding of the type of people that they want to date. And I think you have to become the person that you want to be
Hmm.
in order to be with the quality of person that you want to be with,
Yes. Yes.
and so I think that's kind of the biggest hurdle.
Okay.
And I'm definitely I think too there's so many different types of dating styles and different setups that people have, and I think people really need to embrace what's best for them, whatever that is.
Hmm.
So I think that's really important across the board and let go of societal standards. So much programming we have around relationships
Hmm.
and dating, and I would love to see us let go of more of those.
So can you give an example of some of those societal standards?
Well, there's a lot of societal standards, with women, I think they feel this big rush to run off and get married and have kids.
Hmm.
And excuse me. So if I think we need to slow down and savor each phase, of our relationship and to enjoy the beautiful moments as opposed to rushing to the end result.
Hmm.
Because that's what happened. People were like, they're rushing to get a boyfriend or girlfriend, and they're rushing to get married, and they're rushing to have a kid,
Yes.
and then they've missed all the good parts, and most of the time they don't make movies about once you already have the kids and the family and stuff, right? And
Yeah.
and then once people already have that, they yearn for the savoring that they miss.
Hmm.
And so that's one societal standard. And also, marriage is good for some people, but it's not good for others.
Right.
I don't think we have to, I think we should examine if that is right for us or not. Or, I mean, there's different dating styles as well. There's something like, relationship anarchy, which might be right for some people.
Hmm.
I have a few friends who specifically like that. I don't know if everyone's familiar with that term. It's kind of the idea that you don't have to specifically differentiate between friend or romantic person. There's basically no labels,
Hmm.
and you're just able to be, free. And that might be right for someone, and then
Right.
serial monogamy might be right for another. But the point is, you just got to figure out what's right for you and to embrace what's right for you. And I think that's really important.
Right. And then finding the people who are into that. Because if you're like, oh, hey, I'm polyamorous, and then the person you're with is like, well, I expect to be married in 1 year, it's like, well, that might
Right.
not work.
May not be a good match, right?
Right.
And I think we need to respect other people's dating styles. That has to be okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So what would,
And
oh, sorry, keep going.
no, no, go ahead. That's it.
I was just going to ask, what do you think about dating apps versus meeting people in real life through either social circle or even cold approaching people just
hmm
randomly?
Well, since this is about introverts, I assume we're probably not going to be that good at cold approaching. That's just my guess. I think we have a hard time. I know I had a hard time with it. I'm
Hmm.
I'm terrible at cold approaches actually.
Hmm.
And so I think dating apps are really great for introverts because you can kind of hide behind your phone or your computer screen and get to know people a little bit more there, and you can come out of your shell a little bit.
Sure. Well, I'd be curious to hear your opinion of this because I
Mhm.
for years did almost exclusively dating apps. So this was after college, and I was like, oh wait, it's kind of hard to meet people. So I did the dating apps. This was a while ago because I'm older,
Mhm.
and I did okay with that. And then I would once in a while just randomly see a woman or kind of meet a woman in, quote, real life. And I'm like, I don't know how to make this happen. And it started to really frustrate me because I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, my dating profile was basically, my wingman, or it was showing intent for me. I could just show up. We already know we're both single. We're both at least attracted to or tolerating one another's pictures,
Mhm.
all those sorts of
Mhm.
things. And so I just sit down and I'm like, okay. So it was like the first step was done, maybe even the first two steps. And I didn't like that.
Totally.
So I
Oh,
actually did
okay.
start learning cold approach. And I think there's
Mhm.
a lot that ties into certain communities that I don't really like. And I separated myself from that pretty quickly. But I do still think that cold approaching is a useful skill and
Mhm.
is a way to meet people, and sometimes people that you wouldn't be able to meet online. But yeah, it can be
Totally.
difficult for anyone. But it's kind of like got the kind of learning curve where it's steep at first and then it becomes a lot
Easier.
easier. But yeah, it's a tricky thing. But I'm curious what you think about this because um, so the problem with certain dating apps, particularly as a guy, is that you may be ruled out of the picture really quickly based on a couple details that might not at all be a big deal if you actually met somebody in real life. So what do you think about that idea?
Do you have any specific examples?
Yeah, yeah, mostly around say like somebody's headshot. So here I have empirical evidence with women, and I've looked at other studies as well. We're
Hmm.
rejected online, you meet them in real life and they're attracted to you because basically all you have is a very small parameter of you're judged
Yeah.
by your headshot. And it's basically like your head. And so like what do you have in your head? You got like eyes, you know, nose, like it's pretty and then also it's just
Yeah.
like the height thing. So guys will be just ruled out pretty quickly. Whereas in real life, like, she's not going to necessarily be like, oh, well, my cutoff is 5'10" and this person's 5'9". Maybe she'd be like, okay, he's, first blush, he's not as tall as I'd like, but then it's like, oh, he's charming, blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah. And then you're in
Mhm.
the door.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that's a good perspective to have, and yeah, I think you being able to approach someone with confidence that you don't know, I think could be a really good confidence booster, and if you can do that, and you'd have to develop yourself a lot in order to make that comfortable for a lot of people. So I
Yeah,
think if you can make that journey, it can be very beneficial,
right.
and yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's a positive to if you're in person, you have your personality, and
Right.
online it's more just like picture marketing.
Yeah.
So if your personality is really your strong suit, then I think it's something that can really suit you. Yeah.
And the reason I harp on that is not only because doing cold approach is a really great, I think, personal development tool, but
Hmm.
that actually goes over into other things in life like networking and business and stuff like
That's
that.
true. Yeah.
But
Hmm.
and then aside from that, just the fact that in my own life, the people I've met through that versus just online, have been it's been strangely different. And the other thing though is we do work with a lot of guys who just are not doing well online, and we can definitely I've worked with guys on improving their profiles and everything like that, but for some of
Hmm.
you max out, and then it's if I had only done online, I would have a different view of how women found how attractive women found me. And
Hmm.
it's actually a distorted view based on the fact that I would go out there. I'm like, wow, that's so different when I meet them in real life. So,
Hmm.
what would you suggest for somebody who's really struggling with the online dating? As in, he's not getting any matches. He's not getting any responses whatsoever because that's
Yeah.
often what
Well,
happens.
so what I think is important is when you get um, I've noticed that when you start feeling really worthy of something,
Mm,
that's why this self-worth thing is so important, because the clarity of the how you're going to get there doesn't
mm,
come until you reach a certain point of self-worth on
yeah,
that subject, if that
yeah,
makes sense.
it does.
You know, and then the hows become very clear to you. And so that's why it's just so important to do the self-work first, and then you're going to be one looking at your profile from a different perspective.
Yeah,
You're going to be able to look at, you're going to find the tool that does work when you get that self-worth going. It'll be clear. It won't be hard. It won't be as much effort. You're just going to see it and you're going to be like, I should do that. And then you're going to do it.
yeah,
And and so when you don't have the self-worth lined up yet, it's like it's hard. It's
yes,
effort. It can be difficult. And it's like you never quite get the right thing going. You almost kind of get a bit, it just never fully connects. But you get the self-worth going and that doesn't happen. I don't know, when you really get the self-worth up too, it's almost like this heat kicks on. I
hmm
like to liken it to like a thermostat. You set your thermostat at a certain level of self-worth, and you don't really allow yourself to deviate from whatever that is.
yeah,
But if you can crank that thermostat up higher, it's like the heat kicks on. Sometimes you kind of just get mad, and then you just like not mad, but almost kind of this intensity comes, and you make a change,
yes,
and you have the success.
yeah. I
You know,
love that.
somebody,
I love
yeah,
that.
somebody like Tony Robbins talks about like making it a must, right? Making something a must. And I think that's a little bit of a hard way to go about it, but it kind of illustrates what it is. Like having it's not so much a standard, but it's really cranking up that self-worth to a higher level, and then it becomes easy.
Yeah.
Becomes easier.
No, that
Yeah.
is so key to everything. And I couldn't agree more about that. It's
Awesome.
like, unless you love yourself, unless you think you are something worthwhile, no one else is really going to think that. But the
Right.
question is, so how, if you are in a position where you don't think much of yourself, how does one go from, 0 to 1 there? What would you say are the
Yeah.
best first
Y-
steps?
Well, yeah, and there's a couple ways to do this, and there's different tools for it. I think the first step is to really acknowledging, okay, and being honest with yourself, and just being like, okay, this is where I am right now as far as my self-worth goes. And a lot of times in our head, like on a sort of cerebral level, we'll think we're at a certain self-worth,
Mm.
but like deep down, sort of our body and our emotions, it's kind of like our subconscious is at a different level. And we got to kind of be honest and feel out where that deep down level is.
Yeah.
And and just taking the stock and awareness. And because this is like one thing where if you change it, you will succeed. I'm absolutely sure.
Mhm.
So the first thing is having an intent to do so and acknowledging where you are, right?
Mhm.
And knowing that you have to change it. Two, I always go on this spiel where confidence, I define confidence. So my definition of confidence, and I think it is across the board, it is positive expectation in
Mhm.
a desired outcome.
Mhm.
So what we have to do in order to have more confidence is to have more positive expectation. We need to be more positive.
Right.
So we have to change the way we're thinking. We need to listen to our sort of inner monologue. If we're saying we're not good enough, if we're saying, things about ourselves, we need to instead change it to more positive ways of self-talk,
Mhm.
and to start increasing our the positive things we say about ourselves. And so at the first, it's kind of hard, right,
Yes.
to do so. So deciding that you want to be at a higher state, and sort of defining what level that you want to be at, I think is good, because it'll sort of subconsciously condition you to start moving in that direction. And then getting that self-talk going. I have this thing that I do with my clients called the boulder process that I really love. It's sort of like working with dynamite on this specifically, but it's something you have to sit down one-on-one and do together. It's sort of this, we really shift the emotion. What you really want to do is you have to shift the emotion around that particular subject, right? If you're always very bitter on a certain subject, one of my clients was talking about the bitterness she always had,
Yes.
around dating.
Mhm.
And if you can shift it from bitterness to a more positive place, and you're going to do it one little thing at a time. It's kind of like climbing a ladder, right? So
Mhm.
one little step at a time, up and up and up. And and so if you can move those emotions up into a more positive place, you can increase that thermostat, you can increase that self-worth, you can start loving yourself. At that point, once you're feeling good, you can start affirming, using something like affirmations or
Mhm.
auto-suggestion, they call it, and saying that, and also you could write a list about all the, this is something that people don't, I'm always really bad about this. People will make a suggestion like this and
Mhm.
I won't, I'm totally the person who doesn't do it. But this is something that you really can do and can make you shift the way you feel about yourself, is you can write a list of, and this is something I do with my coaching clients as well, and they love this. You can write a list of all the great attributes that you can contribute to a relationship.
Okay.
And by the time you're like done writing this list of like, 20, 30, 40 things, you're like, yeah, people really should date me. Look how awesome I
Mhm.
am, right?
Right. Yeah.
And when you have that mentality, yeah, I'm awesome. People should date me. And you go up and you talk to someone and you have that energy going on, like you should like me because I'm awesome, right?
Right.
You may feel silly kind of thinking that yourself, but a cold approach will go much better if you think that they should like you. And even if they do reject you, it's not going to bother you because it's like, oh, I just didn't realize how awesome I am. Oh, whatever.
Right. Well, I'd be
Yeah.
curious. That's all excellent stuff. I appreciate that.
Right. Yeah.
I'd be curious about your opinion on a topic. So, It's something that comes up a lot, and actually we'll have an upcoming podcast about it. But the idea of, particularly we're introverts, it seems to be. So if we're saying, hey, introverts, sometimes you might not be being social enough. You might not be putting yourself out there
Hmm.
that much. Maybe you're not that skilled in conversation, mostly because you don't do it that much. So you haven't necessarily developed the level of social skills, et cetera, et
Hmm.
cetera.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, the first obstacle or the first response I get from a lot of folks is, well, I don't want to be a phony. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, of course you don't. And, embracing the fact that you're an introvert, that's one of the best things about us.
Yeah.
I go on and on about how great it is to be an introvert. But the
Yeah. There's a
idea
lot
that,
of positives. Yeah.
core, absolutely, like we're deep thinking, we love those connection, we have so much to offer on so many levels. But
Totally.
that idea of like, well, I don't want to be fake. If I actually go out there and I'm telling myself that I'm a great person and I'm like talking to people and I normally wouldn't do that, that's not being true to myself. Like, what do you think about that whole?
Okay.
I call it an
Totally.
excuse, but
Right. And some people, they talk about like imposter syndrome, right?
mm,
And it's relating to this too. That so imposter syndrome is like the idea, sometimes people, I think, who like Maya Angelou, she'd written like 12 books or something like that. And
yeah,
she was like, she constantly had this feeling that, and she'd won all these awards and stuff. She's like, she constantly had this feeling that she's going to be found out, that she's actually not that talented and everything is BS. And a lot of people get that, imposter syndrome. Jodie Foster too. I think she won, an Oscar, and she's like, oh, she constantly felt like somebody was going to actually grab it from her and tell her it was a joke and give it to Meryl Streep.
yeah, yeah,
And so it's something that so many people have. It's super common. And that's what it's going to feel like when you first start telling yourself that you're something that you want to be, because it's like it almost feels like a lie at the beginning, because and you can even see it in the brain, like you develop certain neural connections in your brain towards certain thought patterns.
hmm
So if you've thought I'm not good enough so many times, and then if you all of a sudden think I'm good enough, it's going to feel like a lie, the first time you say it, because the neural connection is so much stronger toward the other.
yes,
And so I think it's really important to realize that that's what happens. And it's kind of, I liken it to like, when you first think a thought, it's like a little seed, that you can really easily flick away. I talk about this a lot. And if you keep watering it, it becomes a plant, and soon it's like a giant oak tree, right? Once you've
right,
really thought something a lot. And many people have giant oak trees toward, I'm not good enough,
hmm
right? And if you water a little bit of this new plant that I am great, it's still that little seed that can easily be flicked away. And so you got to continually keep watering it until the negative self-talk oak tree sort of withers,
right,
and the new one grows in its place. You have to replace the old with the new. So at the beginning, you're gonna feel fake. You're gonna feel like a phony because it's new.
yeah,
And it's not that you're fake. It's a new thought.
hmm
It's just a new thought, because there's really nothing different than you and the most successful person in the world at what you want to do, except the way you think.
yeah, yeah.
And so everyone is very capable of having what they want. And I want to, that's like my mission, to help people achieve that. And I
Yeah.
love doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally believe that. I think that's excellent, the analogy with the tree and all that. So
Yeah.
we were talking before the podcast a little bit how we definitely are interested in helping people with dating, but our ulterior motive is to actually help people on a deeper level. And of
Yeah.
course, dating, I mean, having relationships in your life, that is really central to a satisfying life, and that's absolutely crucial. But personally, for myself, I kind of got into, all right, I want to work on some dating things, and then it got to a much deeper level. And
Yeah.
so talk a little bit about that, just your view on that, how dating can almost be, working on your dating can almost be this gateway to working on yourself.
Totally. And sometimes I joke around about it being like the best bait and switch. It's like a positive
Yeah,
bait and
a good
switch.
one, right?
Yeah, a good one. And, you go in looking for a relationship and you come out, loving yourself, being more successful, being much happier, and you can have the potential of having a way richer relationship than just having, a husband or a wife, right? You
Yes.
can walk away with so much more.
Yep.
And it's funny because a lot of times we won't do it for ourselves, but we'll do it to have something, but we won't do it. It's like when I really started off in personal development, I was really trying to help people with happiness. But what I found, most people don't want to pay for their own happiness, which is the most important thing in their lives. They
Yep.
don't want to pay for the most important things in their life. They'll pay for a Ferrari,
Yeah.
which they think will make them happier,
Yeah.
as opposed to paying for the thing that will for sure make them happier.
Such a good point.
And it's very funny the way we prioritize things.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I think people go in looking for a relationship and then come out so much more, yeah, in personal
That's
development.
Yeah, that's such excellent insight on that whole topic.
I think.
So yeah, we'll wrap things up. But Zach, tell people how they can get a hold of you if they want to do coaching with you. They want to find out more about what you're doing and putting out there. So go ahead and tell people about that. I'll put some links as well in the description. So if you're looking at this, you can check it out on Podbean or on iTunes as well, and there'll be some links. But tell people how to get a hold of you.
Sure. So definitely check me out on Instagram for daily inspiration. We got a great community of like 18,000 on there. Um, I have a free 3-day Attract Romance video series that you should get on there. That's a link in my on my Instagram, or you can always send me a message to get links to anything specific. I've got a webinar coming up, and you can also find me on Facebook, Zachariah Bourne. You search my name, and I'm very excited. I have a 8-week course coming out with the Romance Academy, and I'm really excited. I think it's going to be like the best thing out there, best like course out there for dating of its kind. So definitely check that out. Message me if you like. I'm always around to answer questions. Oh, I also have a new group, the Romance Academy on Facebook. Is a Facebook group that I've started up, so you can get in early on that if you're interested as well.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Zach. Folks should definitely check out the stuff he's doing. He's making the world a better place for really a
Thank
lot
you.
of us. And thanks again, Zach.
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely.